You know that midsummer feeling where you get home from work early, or maybe you're out, for a little bit of a walk, and all of a sudden there's that smell of somebody's backyard grill. It smells so good, and you're kind of like drooling, and you want to go knock on the door and invite yourself over and say, hey, you don't know me, but your food smells great. And you just kind of start going, oh, I've got to have some barbecue. Anybody maybe know that feeling? Maybe that's how you feel about retirement. You're dreaming about it. You're thinking, drooling over it. You see other people's videos. You go, God, I want to retire. They're retired. How do I do that? And then you think to yourself, where's the best place to retire? And it dawns on you, Washington State. Well, we're going to let you know what you need to know about your dream retirement in Washington State.
I was wondering where he was going with that. I am so glad we landed here because I don't think you want to hear us talk about barbecue the whole time. Maybe you do.
Maybe you do.
All right, so you have probably been planning for retirement for a while, and you probably have some pretty good ideas of what you're hoping for. And then you started thinking about Washington, and then you're wondering, how do my dreams line up with what I've already got as a picture of what I want in retirement? So we are going to give you all the details about weather, taxes, transportation, housing costs, natural beauty, all the things in Washington, so you can decide which area is going to be the best for you to retire in and have all of your dreams come true.
We're Joe and Charity. We're local realtors, and we help people just like you every week who are making a decision to move to Washington State. So let's jump in.
The first thing we're going to talk about is housing. That's usually the number one factor in people deciding where they want to live. And I know that everybody has a different story coming into retirement. So some of you might have plenty of income. It doesn't really matter how much you spend. You are ready to just get the best you can get. And so finding an affordable place to live in Washington might not be top priority. But others of you, you may need to conserve a little bit in retirement, and there's nothing wrong with that. Hey, you don't need to work anymore, and that's the biggest deal. So you might be looking for housing expenses that are a little bit on the lower end. So we're going to give you a really good understanding of the different price points all throughout the state.
We're going to start off with Western Washington, and I think what most people are familiar with is the Seattle area. Now, Seattle's located in King County, so when we think about the median price point in King County, that's going to include all of the areas: Seattle, Bellevue, Renton, all the way on the north side up into Shoreline. All of that area, the median price point is $850,000.
And you're going to be able to find houses a little bit less expensive than that, but not a whole lot less expensive, and definitely a lot more expensive.
Yeah, for sure. If you're looking for some type of waterfront or water view property, you're going to be into the millions for that, and just be prepared. However, if you want to be in a little bit more rural area, maybe by a creek or a stream or something in the surrounding areas in King County, there's really beautiful places for sure, and that's going to be much more affordable.
Joe started with the most expensive, and we are going to go from most expensive to least expensive in Western Washington. So next would be Snohomish County, which is where Everett and Snohomish and Lake Stevens are. And that county has gotten quite expensive over the last few years. And so their median price point is $780,000. There's a lot of great variety in that area. If you want to be in city, if you want to be by a lake, if you want to be out in the woods, if you want to be on farm property. So you have a lot of great options, but it's just a little bit less expensive than Seattle. Next on the list is further north of Snohomish County. It's Whatcom County. It's where Bellingham is. A lot of times when people think about moving to Washington, Bellingham is on their list to check out because it is so
Charming.
beautiful, right next to Canadian border. People really love it. It's very isolated feeling up there, and the prices kind of reflect the desirability, but it is less than Snohomish County and King County. $580,000 is the median income. In that area, you also have great options for city living or country living, living by rivers, living near Mount Baker. So many options there, and it really is a wonderful place to live.
Yeah, for sure. Following on that list is Pierce County. That's where Tacoma is at. Now, Tacoma has a lot of surrounding areas that would include Gig Harbor, Bonnie Lake. It would include Puyallup, further down south into Graham, as well as down below the military base in DuPont. So it's quite a large area, and the median price point is $570,000. Now, throughout that entire area, you could for sure get homes that are less expensive than that, and depending if you want to be in areas of Bonnie Lake or Gig Harbor, much more expensive than that. So it really just depends on the amenities that you're looking for in a lifestyle. We're going to jump into that here in just a minute. The next on the list would be Clark County. Now, this is down on the Washington border across the river from Portland. So it has a lot of desirability. Maybe people want to go into Portland, spend the day and come back and be really a short commute for sure. People thoroughly enjoy Vancouver. Now, it's got a lot of properties that are surrounding from rural down along the Columbia River, lots of options for you. And the median price point in Clark County is $540,000. So already you can note the trend that it's getting more affordable. And this, I think, has amazing areas, especially if you're in the outdoors as well.
And also, if you want to cross the border into Oregon and not have to pay any sales tax, a lot of people love the option of living there so they can go buy all of their things without sales tax.
Insider trick.
The next area is Thurston County. Thurston County is where we live right here in Olympia. It's a little bit further south than Tacoma, and it encompasses Olympia, Lacey, and Tumwater, and also some outlying areas. The median price point is $525,000, and you are going to be able to get some less expensive houses for sure.
Absolutely.
And some more expensive houses. We love to talk about how amazing the waterfront properties are here and how affordable they are. So if you're going to be on the water, you're going to be up higher than that, obviously, but there is some great affordability here and so many wonderful options to be in the trees or walkability features or all kinds of spaces. We love it here.
Absolutely. Now, if you go straight west out towards the ocean, literally Pacific Ocean, you get into Grays Harbor. Now, Grays Harbor has Aberdeen and Oakweum, as well as some really wonderful places along the coastline of Ocean Shores and up the coastline a little bit further. Now, the median price point in Grays Harbor is $305,000. So obviously, you have some very good values out there depending on what you're looking for, but it's a very affordable area. Once you get towards the water, on the water, things go up, and you get along the coastline, things can get very expensive. However, it does have a little bit of something for everyone. And I gotta let you know, it is so beautiful out there. The Olympic National Forest is out there. The Hoh National Rainforest is out there, and it is the only non-tropical rainforest in the world. So it is spectacular. Wonderful to go spend days out there looking at the moss growing on the trees. You kind of get lost in nature if you're into that. I know I am. So if that's something that you're thinking about and considering in your retirement, it might have some good options for you.
Right, and the most inexpensive area in Western Washington for sure.
And so from there, we're gonna jump over to the eastern side. And basically we're talking about the eastern side is central and eastern Washington on the other side of the Cascade Mountain Range.
So just on the other side of the mountain, right past Leavenworth, and if you don't know what Leavenworth is, you need to look that up and you need to go check it out.
It's charming.
It is. In this area, the median price point is $570,000. So of all the central and eastern Washington areas, this is the most expensive.
For sure. Part of what's going to drive that price up is a place called Lake Chelan. It's another charming place that people love to go on vacation. A lot of times people have vacation homes on the water or around the water, so that kind of pushes the price up. However, you could find a lot of property that's far more affordable than that.
Lots of availability if you're looking for more acreage and also quaint, smaller towns. And Lake Chelan that Joe mentioned is utterly gorgeous, crystal clear, beautiful, great spot to go on vacation if you're not going to live there.
So now on the other side of the state is Spokane. Now Spokane is right on the border with Idaho, so it's really close to that, and it has a lot of good options for housing. The median price point is $460,000, and in that $460,000, you're going to find a lot lower than that and some more expensive than that for sure, depending if you want a little bit of property of exactly what you're looking for. But you will have a lot of options. It's a very big city. It's actually the second largest city in Washington state. So a wide variety of housing options are going to be there for sure.
Next in the central and eastern Washington side is Tri-Cities. Tri-Cities comprises of 3 cities, believe it or not, Pasco, Kennewick, and Richland. And this area has a median price point of $435,000. As you can imagine, because there's 3 cities, there's quite a lot of options. And you can have city living, you can have rural living. It really is a spot that you can spread out.
Yeah, for sure. And especially if you want to go in that area, potentially buy a winery, well, you might find an option there for you as well. It's one of the regions that wine comes from in Washington state. Last area that we're going to highlight is Yakima, the Yakima County area. In the center of that is going to be Yakima City as well. Now, this is going to be one of the most affordable areas in Washington state to consider retiring in. It is surrounded a lot by agricultural land for sure, with the median price point being $370,000. $75,000. And if you consider yourself a fly fisherman a little bit, of which I consider myself a little bit, the Yakima River that flows the canyon between Ellensburg and Yakima is considered world-class fly fishing. So it's pretty amazing and beautiful.
Most of the time when people think about housing costs, they're also looking at not just the cost of the house, but also other expenses that go into it. One of which is homeowners insurance. Now, our homeowners insurance here is not as high as some of the places that have high risk, like Texas, California, and Florida. Best thing to do would be to talk to your insurance agent ahead of time and see how it compares with where you're living. As for property taxes, we are pretty much middle of the road when it comes to property taxes nationwide. And it does depend on what county you're in. There's going to be a lot of variations, so you're going to want to check into that. Another thing to consider is that potentially you could qualify for a senior exemption on your property taxes, which of course is going to be even less.
Now, once you get an idea of the pricing of homes throughout the area, you're going to start to think about, okay, now how do I want to conduct my everyday life? What type of lifestyle do I want to have? And part of what determines that is the weather. So let's talk about what type of weather conditions that you're looking for.
And the best way for us to do that is to give you some information about all the different climates there are in Washington state. Surprisingly, there are a lot of them. So let's start first with the coastal area, which is out in that Grays Harbor area that Joe was talking about. It's called Grays Harbor County for a reason, because it is the most cloudy and the most rainy area of Washington state.
Yeah, you can imagine, because the whole national rainforest is out there, that kind of gives you a precursor of what to expect. But all along Washington coast, you're going to experience a lot of rain, a lot of drizzle, and you're going to have marine fog. All of those things are going to affect the daily activities you're engaged in. However, the wonderful thing is, most of the time it's just drizzly. So if you like that, a little gray, a little overcast, a little cozy, read a book, start a fire, go for a hike, explore really lush, beautiful terrain, well, it's a really good option for you.
Let's give you some numbers. So for inches of rain, it's between 75 and 120 inches of rain. You might not even be able to fathom that, but there's different pockets, so you can choose your pocket. For days of sunshine, you get about 139 days of sunshine. So
Not quite.
365 days in the year.
200 days of cloudy and rainy and drizzly.
And for snow, you don't really get very much snow. Some years you don't get anything at all, maybe about 5 inches or so, but it's because you're going to get most of that in rain.
Now, if we pull ourselves back from the coastal area, we go into more western Washington in general, and that's going to include Puget Sound, basically from Bellingham all the way down to Vancouver. That part of it is going to be a little bit different than that slice of coastal region.
Yeah, you're going to get less rain, so about 45 to 50 inches of rain, which that sounds like nothing compared to the Olympic Peninsula. Not too bad at all. You're also going to get about 152 days of sunshine, so a little bit more than Grays Harbor County. And some of those days that account for rainy days, you also get sunshine peaks.
Yes, that's right. So when we think about like a drizzly day, think about like, hey, it might drizzle in the morning. That's going to count as a rain day in essence. But the rest of the afternoon is going to be sunshine out or a little cloud dispersed throughout the area. So really think in terms of like partial cloudy a lot, because it's just not always 100% drizzly on those drizzly days.
Right. And for snow, it's going to vary by year, but probably 6 to 10 inches of snow, depending on if you're up in Bellingham or down in Vancouver, but not a whole lot of snow, but enough to just make it fun.
Fun enough that every couple of years you might have a snow day, a little sledding, that type of thing, but you're really going to be in elevation a little bit, and that's where you're going to notice the snow. And from there, we go to the complete other side of the state in eastern Washington, and here is where we're going to get you some sunshine.
Yes, you are going to get about 171 days of sunshine. And we are going to move down on the rain, about 17 inches of rain, which is really hardly anything once we've already talked about the western side, but you're going to need a lot of snow.
Yeah.
Average is 44 inches in Spokane.
With those 44 inches of snow, some of it's going to stick around. You might have a couple months of it. And depending on the year, it might be less or more. But nonetheless, do be prepared that you are going to encounter snow at some point in time in the winter. Not going to get all those 40 plus inches in one night, but you will get it over the course of several months. So be aware of what's coming at you.
Yep, for sure. I know when we moved over to Spokane, I had never lived basically off of the coast, and I was
Pleasantly surprised?
I was
Horribly
surprised, a bit shocked at how much snow there was, and you kind of are expected to know how to get around also.
Yeah.
That's one thing, is they've been getting around in snow for a long time and they're used to it. When you live over on the Seattle side, you're not used to it, and so everything shuts down. In Spokane, everything goes. School goes, even if there was 12 inches of snow. Get up and go to school the next day.
Right.
But you get through it and everybody gets around.
Just slow down, give each other space. That's pretty much the rule of thumb. Lots of space, take your time. And if you don't have to go out, you work and telecommute, it's perfect. You just look out your window at beautiful fallen snow, all fresh, white, and gorgeous.
It is beautiful.
Now, if you're thinking to yourself, man, is there a place with more sunshine and maybe a touch warmer? Well, yes, there is. That is Central Washington. And when you're ready for sunshine and some really warm summers, here's where you're looking.
The numbers are kind of staggering. 300 days of sunshine in Central Washington. So Tri-Cities, Yakima, those areas. If you want some sunshine and you thought Washington couldn't deliver it,
it can.
It can. And if you thought Washington was cold all the time, not necessarily.
Not
it is
at all.
well above 100 in those cities. A lot
All
of it.
summer long. Certain regions, this is a high plateau desert, so you are experiencing lots of sunshine. You're going to see some cactuses out there. You might run into a rattlesnake or not, depending on what you're looking for. And you're just going to enjoy some wonderful sunshine. To be out there, especially if you're into golf and you're outdoors and you really enjoy the sunshine, you're going to have some great options.
And as Joe mentioned, the wineries, because there's a lot of wineries in Central Washington. So if golfing and wine are the top two things on your retirement list, which I know they are for a lot of people,
Nothing wrong with that.
this might be the right spot for you. As for rain, you only get about 8 inches of rain a year. So the least amount of rain. And for snow, it's more moderate, 10 to 20 inches, depending on the area that you're in and depending on the year. So it's looking really good right now for us to move to Central Washington.
Here we come, Yakima for fly fishing and golfing. All right, so now you know the cost of homes and now you know what type of weather that you're looking for. The next thing that we need to address, because as we get older, healthcare matters a lot. So let's jump into that. What does the healthcare situation look like?
As you can imagine, the major cities are going to be the places where you're going to have the most convenient healthcare. Seattle, Tacoma, Olympia, Vancouver, even Bellingham, everything that's on the western side of Washington, you're going to have pretty easy access. And the closer you are to the main cities like Seattle and Tacoma, the easier it's going to be.
Now, on the other side of the state, your Spokane and Yakima and the Tri-Cities also have really great healthcare systems as well. So it's going to be around those, like Charity is mentioning, those larger city areas that you're going to have some of the premier healthcare systems.
So you may be thinking, I am pretty healthy right now. I am just starting my retirement. I don't need to necessarily be that close. So as we mentioned before, there are so many areas in each of these counties that just spread out. You just might want to consider being an hour and a half away. We actually have some friends that we were talking to the other night, and they live about an hour and a half away from their doctors and hospitals that they like to go to in Seattle. And they've lived in retirement for about 10 or 15 years, and they are happy where they're living right on the water, but they are starting to think now about moving a little bit closer to Seattle. So it might not be that you're getting a house that you're going to live in forever. Maybe it's a house that you're going to live in for a little while, and then as you get a little bit older, you might want to move closer to town. So lots of great things to think about in regards to your healthcare options. Another important thing to think about in regards to healthcare is Medicare and the Medicare Advantage and supplemental plans. Checking into your representative to see what the costs are in the different areas is really important, as well as what the availability is for doctors taking new patients.
So when you have to get to the doctor or healthcare provider, how are you going to get there? Let's talk about transportation.
So in Washington, you're pretty much going to need a car.
Yeah.
It's pretty spread out, like we talked about. And if you want to do some exploring while you're here, you're going to be using a car. However, if you decide that you want to live in a walkable community, that is possible as well. You're going to have places in most of the major cities that have some really nice walkable spaces, as well as some public transportation. The most opportunity for public transportation is going to be in the Seattle hub. There are light rail systems that go out of Seattle into most of the areas that are within about an hour and a half away. So you're going to be able to get pretty far, and if you're in one of those cities that's connected, you could actually live out there and get easily into Seattle, so that's something to consider. Of course, all the other cities are going to have bus systems, and then the ferry system is also the fun part of living in Washington, is you can get around in the islands and all of that. One of the good parts of getting older is there's senior discount, and there are senior discounts on public transportation in most cities.
Of course, getting around, you're going to have to sometimes get around traffic. And if you want to have zero traffic, well, Seattle's probably not the best place for you. And of course, anywhere on I-5 is usually going to be pretty heavy most of the time during daily commute. The other side of state in Spokane is going to be a little bit less comparative. I know people that live in Spokane, they think theirs is terrible. However, being stuck in traffic around a baseball game at Mariners for 2 hours, it is far worse over here. Just context matters for sure. But overall, depending on where you live, it's going to have a wide variety of impact on your daily life. Now, let's get off of traffic and let's get to the real beauty of the Northwest, which is everything other than the freeway. So let's dive into the natural beauty and what to explore outdoors in your retirement.
We absolutely love the beauty of the Northwest. It is our favorite thing to talk about. We're realtors, so our favorite thing should be housing, but it really is.
It's really not. It's the outdoors is what we love talking about, love to experience, and why we love living here. And that includes all of Washington State. I think Washington State is one of the most beautiful states in general in all of the 50 states. I'm biased. I live here. I know somebody up in Alaska going to say, we're more pretty. You're not. We're as good as you are. Just FYI, throwing that out there. I'll push back on the Alaskade.
Let's first talk about the national parks and state parks and all the amazing places there are to hike and explore. So on the western side of Washington, we have got all the mountains, Mount Rainier, Mount St. Helens, Mount Baker, we've got the Olympic Mountains, and we've also got the Hoh National Rainforest, which is completely different than mountains, but amazing, full of rain, full of moss, full of beauty, all kinds of things. We get out and hike as much as we can. So if you have any questions about best hikes in Western Washington, just make a comment below and we would love to give you some of our favorite hikes.
Yeah, of course. Then you also have water. You have Puget Sound, obviously on the western side, and it is expansive and gorgeous in so many places to explore. You also have the Columbia River and the Gorge, which is a really beautiful area. And the Columbia River basically goes up and splits part of Washington State. And you have so many reservoirs and lakes that people enjoy all summer long, and then hikes that go along accordingly with that. And then you get over to eastern Washington, and lo and behold, you have lakes and you have ski resorts and you have golfing and outdoor hikes. It's really beautiful. Matter of fact, I think Riverside State Park is one of the best places and most accessible places for amazing mountain bike riding over in eastern Washington. So you really do have it all wherever you're at in the state.
And let's not forget about all those rivers.
Rivers are everywhere and plenty. So like I said, if you're into fly fishing, you're into fishing, if you're into boating, if you're into whitewater rafting, you have it all at some place in this state. And wherever you're at in the state, really it's accessible about 5 to 6 hours, and you pretty much could get from one end to the other. Now that we've covered at least some of the beautiful places to Washington, one of the last things you're going to be thinking about, like, well, what's left? Death and taxes. So let's talk about that in our final stage, what to expect if you're going to retire here in your death and taxes, because you're not missing out on either of those.
No, that's the only thing that's sure in life, right?
That's really the only thing that's sure.
So do we have an estate tax? Yes, we do. It is a complex one. It ranges depending on how much you have in your estate. So you are definitely going to want to talk with your CPA before you make a move. And the one thing that we have really learned about having a great CPA is that they can help you avoid a lot of the taxes in a legal way.
That's right. Any tax avoidance, it needs to be legal. Yes, as all of us going into potential retirement at some point in time, we need to know how to keep as much as we can throughout retirement. So you're going to want to talk to your CPA about that for sure.
And as we think about keeping as much as you can, the one thing that's great about Washington is we're one of only 9 states that has no state income tax, which means that your retirement income is not going to be taxed, which the rest of the country, it does. Now, I know we talk to a lot of people who are thinking about moving here in retirement, but they actually consider working here for quite a few years before they retire. They are going to make the transition a little bit sooner. And the great thing to know about Washington is even though we may have some taxes that may feel like they're a little bit higher than some areas, even though we may have cost of housing that could be a little bit higher, overall, we are one of the highest income producing states. Actually, 3 in the nation, only behind New York and Maryland. And overall, we are number 1 for disposable income. That means when you take out all the expenses, we actually make more money per capita than any other state in the nation, which is pretty incredible.
We're number 1 for a reason. And that's why you're probably sitting here listening to this entire video, thinking about why you want to retire here. Because in a lot of regards, your money does go further and the quality of life is extremely high. So now if we've got you basically salivating as if your neighbor has got a steak on the grill and you're wanting to invite yourself over, and that's how you're viewing your retirement and potentially here in Washington, well, we would love to have a conversation to help you even further.
So feel free to reach out on the number below, just text us or give us a call, or you can email us by using the link in the description below. And as always, if you have enjoyed this video, just keep watching because the next one is going to give you more information about living in this beautiful state.